Hello everyone, Hubert here and Aaron from Paradise Lost is a really special guest today with me. How are you, man? How was the summer for you and how was it for a band? Did you have some time to rest at all, or maybe is it work,
Yeah,
work, work?
it's been really busy actually. I mean, it's full of those mad things like you fly to Mexico for one day for a festival, and well worth it 'cause the festival was amazing. But you spend almost as much time in the air as you do actually in the country when you get there. But well worth it, great show. But yeah, it's been quite busy. I've just been in Ireland again this weekend, so that's the first time for a few times. But yeah, we've all been hopping all over the place like Crete everywhere. So it's been a really good summer. Really good summer. Busy, but we've got like a 3 week tour with Primordial next week. It's been one of those tours that was organised before the second lots of lockdown, and it's just been pushed on. So we're doing that starting next Thursday, Friday, at the end of September, and yeah, that's like roughly just under 3 weeks. And then besides that, we've got the icon shows at the end of the year, and then it's concentrate on a new album.
Yeah, and you guys are coming to Poland on October 10. You play a show in Wrocław, and it's yeah, as you said, it's not just a typical Paradise Lost show. It's like more
Yeah.
than like a festival, even or something.
Yeah, it's like a mini package thing by all accounts. Yeah, I think we ourselves and Primordial are doing an hour each, and then there's another couple of bands as well. So
Yeah,
yeah,
please tell me more about the Paradise Lost relationship with Poland, because it's something really interesting for me. Because it feels like you guys are such an icons here in our country, and it's like somebody is doing a festival, is going to tell some lineup in a few days, and in the comments you can see like many people writing Paradise Lost, Paradise Lost, Paradise Lost. Yeah, it seems like
yeah.
you guys are real icons here. And what's the story behind that?
Do you know? I think it's. The first time I think we came was about April or something in 1991. I think it was a Bleed to Leaston tour. I think it was Sepultura, Master, ourselves, Vader played as well. Um, and that was the first time we came to Portland. Then, do you know what? We had such a great reaction from the crowd. We've just always come back. It's like even some of the, we even came to Poland to especially play some of the Draconian Time shows. We've always had a great relationship with the fans in Poland, um, and it's reciprocal. You know, they enjoy us coming and we enjoy coming to you. So it's a lovely relationship both ways, really. And yeah, it's always great. It's been interesting to see the country how it's changed over that time as well. Um, but yeah, no, it's amazing. But yeah, the Bleed to Leaston tour was the first time we saw it, and it was still when slotties were in the thousands. Then I think it was something like, I think I remember I changed 20 Deutschmarks, which was about £6 at the time, into like 124,000 slotties or something at the time. But and I know it was quite difficult for the vegetarian. The first time we came over, I was the only meat eater in the band, and the rest of the guys were vegetarian. They had a hard time getting
Yeah,
food the first time we came over. That changed within a year or two. I mean, Poland completely changed within 2 or 3 years for the for the better. Um, but yeah, no, it's we had so many fun times and interesting stories over the years from coming to Poland that yeah, we always love coming back. You know that.
yeah. Speaking about icons, as you are icons in Poland, you guys are you guys re-recorded your legendary album Icon after 30 years. And I suppose
Yeah,
the main reason is to own the rights for the songs, as you guys stated in social media and all that stuff.
yeah.
Uh, and to also deliver a really beautiful vinyl version with a new cover. But have you guys changed some things, some maybe details in the way of sound on this new version?
Well, not really. It's pretty faithful, but like a modern recording of it, if you know what I mean. I know Nick's been very careful to very carefully recreate how he sang it, or even the similar sort of way, but it's just recorded with, you know, I mean, we're less naive in the studio as well now, and it's do you know, it's something we haven't done yet, and it's one of those things where you almost don't want to do it. We did like a re-recording of True Belief, but I still, years ago, True Belief '97, I think it was on a single EP. But it didn't, for me, it wasn't as good as the original. But with this one, it was a chance to do something different that we haven't done before. Like we have so many anniversaries with albums, and do you know what? Going back and re-recording them, I recorded the guitars here at home, and then they got sent over to Gomez, and they got reamped there. I just recorded the GIs here at home, and going back through some of the songs, because you sort of forget every album, you forget about a couple of songs because you don't play them live, or you've never played them live, some of them. And it's brilliant to go back and sort of re-experience those songs. I mean, we've really enjoyed it. I mean, we're going to be putting a song in the set, this European set, so you'll probably see it, if it's still in the set, because Nick changes his mind all the time. If it's still in the set on October the 10th when we come, yeah, we're putting a song in that we haven't played for probably 25 years or something, that off Icon, just because, you know, we're sort of getting ready. We might swap it around because we wanted to sort of rehearse ahead of the shows. We might play a couple of different ones, but yeah, it's been nice revisiting the songs, you know, because they're like steps down memory lane for us as human beings as well. You know, they remind us very much about that time. You know, when we were recording Icon, there was one morning I came down to breakfast in the studio, and Morton Hackett from Aha was sat there. So I had breakfast with him one morning. One of the Goss brothers, I can't remember if it was Luke or Matt, they were walking around the studio to look at it. They caught me coming out of the bath in just a towel, and he was very apologetic. But, I mean, it's kind of, there's so many stories from back then. I met Stiff Little Fingers as well. Whoa, brilliant that. I love Stiff Little Fingers. But yeah, no, it's a nice coming back to things that are little parts of your own life as well. For us as musicians, you know, it's quite a good experience. But yeah, there's a few albums that we don't actually own the recordings. We own the songs, you know, the songs are like Holmes, Macintosh or whatever, but we don't actually own the recordings. So with Icon, we thought it was a good chance to do something different as a tribute to it, and get ownership of that particular recording. We've got a lot of the other albums, but there's a few albums that we don't. And then, because what you have to do then is you have to pay whoever owns the album money, and sometimes it isn't worth you know, what it costs you to re-release it. It's almost you're making money for the people who own the album, not actually doing anything for yourself, really. But yeah, no, it was something we thought we'd try, and it's turned out great. I mean, I recorded it must have been end of April or something. I did the guitars because there's such a backlog on ordering vinyl pressing. I mean, because it's vinyl pressing plants, I think a couple have gone, and then there's just such a backlog because everybody's printing vinyl that we had to have it mastered 6 months before we wanted it minimum. So yeah, it's kind of mad, but I'm looking forward to vinyl again myself, to be honest.
Yeah. Really looking forward to it too. And I think at the time when Icon was released, the voices like "We Have the New Metallica" became louder and louder than ever, actually. Was it frustrating for you guys?
I don't think Nick, I mean, it's hard to do, if you wanted to do melody but slightly gruff singing, it's hard not to do James Hetfield, to be honest, I think. I mean, obviously don't do as many, you know, oh yeah, or whatever, but I mean, James Hetfield is a god for me, so I mean, he's my hero guitar-wise, but yeah, so it was quite hard. I think Nick used to throw them in sometimes live, just to sort of like tip his hat to the joke of the fact that everybody was saying that. But yeah, I think it was for him as well, because he was still developing how he wanted to sing. You know, he'd started doing some more normal singing on Shades of God, and I think he was still trying to find his voice, if you know what I mean, his own particular point in that style. So I think it was a little frustrating for him. but at the time, but now it's just like, yeah, whatever. You're older and you don't care.
Yeah, sure.
You know.
Look what I got here. Really.
Oh man! Funnily enough, I've got a copy here of the Polish version of the book actually as well.
Oh, great! Really beautiful. In a beautiful way released book, a really thick one, a really thick pages, and some kind of matte and also shining cover, but it reminds me of some kind of an old school book, or even, I don't know, a Bible or something.
Crikey.
Are you guys happy about this book?
Yes, very. And do you know what? It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to do it, because I think we spent over the course of about 6 or 7 months. I mean, I did about 14 2-hour interviews.
Okay.
For it. But it was quite good because he was asking everybody else, and we all, at some points, we remembered different things. And so then he could remind you about that. And do you know what? It was fantastic walking down memory lane and sort of sharing what we all remembered about it. And in that regard, it was really enjoyable to do. Really, it was done over a long period of time. But yeah, I think David's done a great job. I did the proofreading for it. I read the book before it was released to check the facts were right and names were right, etc. And yeah, no, I thought it was great. There was only like literally 1 or 2 tiny mistakes in the whole book. So yeah. He's done a great job, David. He's a really nice guy as well, so fair play. But yeah, I'm happy with it. Really, I'm happy.
Yeah, I think it is something like that with the band. The members of the band are telling their stories after many years, and everyone has different versions of the stories, and it's a really hard thing to do for a writer of the book, to put it like, I would say, the way that is okay with everyone's versions of the stories.
Yeah.
And yeah, no,
the way he did it, he sort of did it in different time periods, and he'd interview myself or Nick first, and then he'd go around and they'd remember other things, and then he'd come back and ask me and a couple of others. So he kind of gave the chance for everybody to hear what other people had said, and then they could go, oh God, yeah, I remember that as well. And so the way he did it, which meant it was a long process, but it meant it came out exactly as everybody wanted it in a way. Do you know what I mean? So in that regard, it was great.
Great.
No, I thought for me, it was, I was constantly going, oh, wistfully looking down memory lane. For us, it was quite. It was a nice sort of way to look back at what we've done, because sometimes you spend. I mean, especially up till COVID. I mean, it's almost like you're running forward and you don't stop, because you do an album tour, you do an album tour, so you're constantly moving forward. I mean, the first time you have a pause on that was COVID, really, and for a lot of people, I think a lot of people reflected on how they felt about what they were doing, where they were in their life. And a lot of people left the music industry, some forced and some because they thought, do you know what, I actually like seeing my family, I'm going to get a normal job, or, do you know, things like that. But it just seemed like when we did the book, which was before COVID, obviously, and it was a nice way to sort of like put the brakes on and look in the rearview mirror for a bit. Yeah,
because you don't have a time for things like that in everyday's life when you're releasing many albums, many tours.
Yeah, I mean, we do sit around and have a laugh about some things. I mean, because we're quite lucky with Paradise Lost that 4 out of 5 are original, so we were all there, for all these stories. So yeah, we do sort of catch up about stuff or remember things, or sometimes there'll be a thing that pops up. It's like, oh God, do you remember that? And then we'll all have a right good laugh about it, because I mean, we spend most of our time laughing, to be honest. I mean, it's I think you share love of the same things that are funny is what keeps you together. That and friendship.
Yeah. What was, I would say, more refreshing and exciting for Paradise Lost? Recording 1 second or recording host?
Two different things. I think, do you know what? Working with Sank, the producer, on 1 second was great because he was completely different to anything we'd used before. Had a few different ideas, but some of the songs were changing while we're in the studio with 1 second. I mean, 1 second album. I mean, the song Mercy, about a month before we went in the studio, was a rock song. It was like then it ended up like loads of keyboards. And Greg was sort of changing it while we were in the studio, some of it. So it was quite exciting on that front, that things were happening while we were there. And with host, I mean, on a personal level, I found it very exciting recording it because I was actually playing with effects and sounds. Whereas like sometimes Greg was on the keyboards most of the time, and he'd come up with something. I said, "Oh, if I can do that on the guitar, can I do it on a guitar?" And he was like totally cool. He was like, "Yeah, go for it." So it's like boom, 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 in I can't remember the song down, boom, and it was like that was a keyboard part, and I part of the thing. I said, "Oh, I'm going to do that on a guitar with it." And to me, it was interesting recording host because it wasn't something I hadn't done anything like in the studio. Normally, I'd layer up 4 tracks of rhythm guitars, and that was my job, and some acoustic stuff. That was basically my job. But with host and 1 second to a degree, there was a bit more fluidity playing with effects and sounds. So it was interesting in that regard. I mean, the one thing with the host album, it sounded even better live. Once you had 2 people playing guitars on top of it, which we had to develop it a bit to do that, and I sort of heavied up some other bits. It actually sounded really good live. The one thing with the host was the production was very pop. It was kind of like a very flat production, well recorded, but a very flat production. So it lost all of its dynamics. When things were supposed to go pow pow or something, it just like pow pow. It was just like one volume level kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And I think when Gomez remixed it, it sounded a lot better. Same with Believe in Nothing. The Gomez redoing those, it gave those 2 albums a bit more life, I think.
Mm-hmm. Paradise Lost has a really, I would say, like clear chapters or eras in the way of sound in their discography. And which album was the time when the band felt, stronger than ever?
What do you mean, as people or as a music if wise? Which do you mean?
Maybe both.
I'll give you
more
both
from a people's perspective.
From people's perspective, I mean, although we were getting very tired of the constant touring, I think during the Draconian Times tour, because we literally spent a lot of time touring for Icon, and Icon was like a real build process for touring. I mean, we did our own show at the Stuttgart Longhorn with MTV that became the Harmony Breaks video, that was such an amazing show. And then we did the Chaos Aedy tour with Sepultura, and that tour was phenomenal. I mean, for both of us. I mean, Icon was going like that, Sepultura going like that. I mean, on the Chaos Aedy tour, I think I watched them most nights, and they sounded incredible on that tour. Really, really good. I mean, the band at that point, where I thought they were going to be as big as Metallica at that point. I really did. They were like, really taking off, and they deserved to be, because they on that tour, I was just like, this is one of the best metal bands I've ever heard. You know what I mean? So that tour was great, and then we did our own headlining tour, which was even better again. But then we went straight into writing Drac Times, and then we were out for another 2 years. And it just felt like there was 4 years where we didn't have much time at home. We did have some time, but we were sort of busy trying to make the music. And by the time we got to 1 second, and that was a lot of touring as well, that sort of whole period, I mean, 1 second until we re-released Draconian Times, 1 second was our biggest selling album. I mean, that tour was bananas, really. So I would say that sort of period, because it's the first time you feel like, bloody hell, this is going great. You know what I mean? And that period was like really sort of life-changing for us. But then there's other points. It's like I remember around the time we were recording sort of The Plague Within and onwards, I think we've sort of, as human beings, we got to an age where we were like, bloody hell, we're so lucky to be doing what we're doing. And I think we got to an age where we felt quite humbled by the fact that people actually still enjoyed what we did, and we realized how much we enjoyed doing what we do again.
Mm-hmm.
And I think over the last probably 10 years or so, we've really come to appreciate even more, you know, how fortunate we are, and how and we sort of enjoy it more now than we ever have, because we appreciate, you know, the fortunate state of our situation, really, you know. And the fact that we're still all good mates after 35 and a half years is pretty trouble. Although we've been friends longer. I mean, when I was 11 years old, Greg was in the next classroom to me. Do you know what I mean? Tuds, our original drummer, sat behind me when I was 11 years old. I met Nick when I was 13, BMXing. He was 12 at the time. He was a very good BMXer, actually. But yeah, no, it was kind of it's the lasting friendship is probably the thing that we all enjoy the most, is the fact that that's managed to be maintained through it all, you know.
Yeah. On your latest albums, I feel like you guys are kind of back to your roots in the way of sound. And I'm curious if you guys have something like, you know, speaking about the future, maybe, like, you know, you want to go more pop or more electronic again?
I think it's unlikely. I think you don't know, though. I think if Greg wanted to do something pop now, he'd do a side project instead. I think that's probably one thing he sort of learned. It's like he knows where Paradise Lost sort of is comfortable, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And that's why some of the more extreme stuff he's done as a side project. Same with Nick doing Bloodbath. You know, he loves doing Bloodbath because he loves death metal, and he doesn't like death metal. He loves death metal, and he loves the guys in Bloodbath as well. You know, so he really enjoys having that as a juxtaposition to what Paradise Lost doing. So I think if it was something that was out, well, you never know. The thing is, that's the one thing we've never planned ahead. Even when, say, for instance, with the 1 second that you brought up earlier, even halfway through the recording of that album, it didn't sound anything like it ended up sounding. So we kind of go with the flow each album at a time. But, you know, I think we know where we enjoy Paradise Lost being. But I don't know. I mean, we'll still try different stuff if it fits. It's doing host and that. I think sometimes you have to throw yourself a curveball to find out where you want it to be to start with. And I think as young men growing up, it seemed like the natural thing to do. Maybe a little bit far for some people, but I think, and sometimes unless you put yourself out there, you never know. It's like the people who look across the valley and they see the sun reflecting on the windows, the golden windows, and they said, I want to be in the house with the golden windows. And they cross the valley and they go over there and the windows are dull. Where they look back, their windows are shining. You know, so it's always the grass is greener on the other side or whatever. And I think as you get older, you know where things sort of belong. But I still think the good thing with Paradise Lost is there's still flexibility to do something if we wanted to, you know?
Yeah. To be honest,
I mean, that's kind of where we are. We never overly plan anything really.
Yeah.
We go with the flow. It's how you feel on the day, you know?
Yeah, and it's a great thing about Paradise Lost because I feel like, as a listener, I feel like all these changes in the way of sound were really organic. I would say that you really felt like doing this then. Please tell me.
I mean, the reason we started the band in the first place was to make the music we wanted to hear. Because nobody else was quite doing it. And the one ethos we've always had is we write it for ourselves first. We're just lucky that sometimes people like it.
Yeah, I think it's the only right way for a musician to release their music, because, you know,
Yeah, it's got to be honest, because people can tell. You know, if I mean, there was a point. You know, I remember when we did Draconian Times. I remember one person in the industry, not in the band or at our label, but another label. I think they were interested in taking us at the time, and they were like, "Look, if you can do 4 Draconian Times, as in the next 4 albums like Drac Times, I can make you massive." And it was like, why would we want to do that? You know. It's not exciting, because you want to get excited yourself when you're making an album. It's exciting, you know. It's I don't want to compare it to the birth of a child, but when you're putting something together, it's exciting, and you still want to feel as giddy as you did when you made your first album, when you make your 17th album next year when we do it. It's like you that's why you do it, you know. It's if at the end of the day, if somebody says they don't like your album, that's person's opinion. That's fine. But unless you can say, I like it, and that's your honest opinion, then what's the point in doing it? You know, got to be honest to yourself first. And then if people like it, lovely.
I'm a fan of this kind of attitude, to be honest. Please tell me, are we living in a good times or bad times for rock and metal music right now?
Do you know what? I think I think festivals are looking really healthy. I think there's a lot. There's been like a gap where there's a lot of really young bands, and there's a lot of bands who are my age or even older. And I think there was a gap in the middle for a bit. But there are some bands from that era still. But I think it's on the rise, because, you know, you see younger bands playing festivals, and they're actually doing well at festivals, and I think that's amazing. I mean, some of the festivals have had a hard time this year with the weather. I mean, Metal Days, you know, and Wacken, etc.
Yeah.
I mean, we were at Metal Days on the one day when it was sunny, and I think the day after we left, I think the National Guard shut down the roads. It was that bad with the floods. So I mean, festivals have had a hard time with the weather. So I feel more sorry for the festival organisers at the minute than I do for the musicians, etc. But I think music's in quite a healthy place. You see, I mean, I watch so much YouTube, and you see so many incredible young musicians, and they're infinitely more technical at 14 and 15 than any of us were when we were like 25. You know, and there's a great resource out there on the internet. I mean, obviously it means there's a lot of people to sort of fight your way through to get to the top. But even if you're just making music for your own pleasure and you're learning things off the internet, I think it's a great time in some ways, you know. And festivals, you are seeing, you know, thankfully there's a lot of bands of my age that are still around. It was really nice. I bumped into Trevor from Obituary the other week. We had a few drinks. That was brilliant. We had a right good night. But it's kind of like, you know, all these bands that we've known for years, like Napalm Death, I've known since 1989. I mean, Lee Dorian was still singing from when first time I met Napalm Death. Barney was in Benediction at the time, first time I met him. So, but all these guys are still around, and we're like old friends. So for us, festivals are like social clubs. It's like, hey, I haven't seen you for ages, you know. It's like where old friends meet as musicians, you know. But I think, I think the rock metal scene is pretty vibrant, I think, at the minute. And I think in the next 10 years, I think it'll rise again, I think.
Okay, great. And what do you think about the way of distributing music, as maybe as an artist and as a listener? As you said, you like vinyls, and you can also tell us how do you listen to music these days? Is it streaming vinyls, or maybe you have some special rituals?
Do you know what? It's a lot of the time when I'm listening to music, it's when I'm traveling, to be honest. I listen to some at home, but I'd rather pick up a guitar and play for myself something. Do you know what? Play along to Motorhead songs or something like that. You know, I still enjoy doing that kind of thing, like learning Thin Lizzy and Michael Schenker songs and stuff like that, you know. But it's kind of it's a double-edged sword, the streaming services, because you make nothing from it, really. Absolutely nothing. Oh, what was the one I saw the other day? It was somebody who had 47 million streams, of a song. It was a famous artist, 47 million,
Mm-hmm.
I think it was, but maybe 90 million streams of a song, and he'd made $1,000. That's dollars. You know what I mean? And it's like that isn't a sustainable model for a musician. You know, I mean, that's going to pay. I mean, 47 million. I mean, even if you used to sell like a quarter of that as singles, you did quite well. I mean, you might make 50p on a single or 25p, but that's still £1,000,000 minimum. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's kind of financially, streaming services are terrible. They're a great way for people to find your music. It's a great way. It's a convenient way to listen to music. I do. You know what I mean? I'll download. You know, I'll subscribe to one and I'll download the tracks to listen while I'm flying, because obviously you can't stream. And it doesn't help musicians, and that's why I think that's probably half the reason why people make vinyl, because that actually is just money that you can make to put towards your recording budget, or to pay for the petrol. I mean, tour buses. If you want to get a tour bus now, compared to 3.5 years ago before COVID, it's twice the price. The fuel is also much more expensive.
Yeah.
But that's the one thing I think for new bands that will I think there'll be streaming concerts more than going out on the road, because you know, you've got a promoter who's also got to pay PA hire and everything like that, and he'll say, all right, I'll give you $200 or $250, $300, you know, for a gig, and yet they've had to drive miles with all the gear, pay for a driver. You know, van tours, I think, are one way to do it, but still, van tours used to be a cheap alternative, and now they're expensive with fuel and van hire and things like that. It's increasingly difficult for bands to get on the road, especially new bands, because the record companies used to get tour support in the 90s. There's a thing where they would actually pay money towards you going on tour because it was promoting the album or whatever. But now record labels aren't seeing as much money because a lot of people stream. So they're not willing to put money into the tour. So you have to fund it yourselves. I know so many bands that have done that. They thought, right, we're going to give it a year. We're going to try it. And they'll owe like 20,000 euros each at the end of the year. And they've done a tour, but then they've got to go back to work and they owe 20,000 euros each. And it's so hard. I think that's the one problem with the way it is now, because touring is one of the best ways you can make money, because obviously if you can sell merchandise, which is a great way to support the artist, unless you go to some venues, which, I mean, we played a venue the other week and it was 30% they take, and that's just like, it's unbelievable. You know, it's like that could be the difference between you paying for your fuel for a smaller band. You know, it's like, I just wish, I mean, if there was a flat fee, say it was 100 euros to sell your merch, and the person selling it, if it's not one of your people, it's someone at the venue, they get that, and that's fine. But when they're taking, basically, I mean, the profit on your merch, it might be 60%. So they're taking half your profit, and that could be what's paying for you to actually make it to drive between the shows. And I think that is the biggest commitment for artists now. Because I mean, I always say the music industry isn't something that'll make you rich, but it's currency for the soul, is what I always say. You know, it's like, I'm not a rich man. If I'd have carried on being an engineer or a programmer, as I was in the 80s, I'd have made a lot more money than I would from music, you know. But it's something that you do for love. And, you know, we make enough money to pay the bills, don't get me wrong. But it's not like we're rolling in money or anything like that. That's so far from the truth. But there's a certain amount of currency for the soul that, I don't know, it's like I'll be 54 in December, but inside, in here, I still think I'm 20 or something. I think it keeps you
That's
young.
a good thing.
As well, you know, I go on stage, I feel like I'm 18. I wake up in the morning with a bad back and I feel 80. But, but that's just the price you pay. But do you know what? It puts a smile on my face, and I feel like I've got a good life, because money isn't everything, you know. Like I say, currency for the soul.
Great. Thank you so much for this amazing conversation. All the best for you, all the best for the band, for the tour, for the, you know, re-releasing the Icon. All the best for you. Thank you so much once again.
I hope you like it. Thank you. And are you coming to the show?
I really hope so. I'm not sure because I have some, kilometers there, but I'll try to be there. And because I'm really curious.
We did the last set of Polish dates last year. We did them on the train instead of flying. So much better. Your rail service is so much better than the British one. Okay. Loads better.
All right. So thank you so much once again.
Thank you so much as well for your time. Take care, my friend. Cheers, man.